There's a lot of things that my good pal Eddie Hearn and I would disagree about. This is not one of those things.
This is Jonathan Agoff here for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Dan Rafael. Well, Dan, we're finally on the same sort of time zone, a few hours in it, but how's your morning been, Dan? Busy?
You could say that. I'm now in the early evening here in the East Coast, so it's been a hectic day with everything that's been going on with the Fury and Usyk situation. Not to mention just the other normal things I'd be doing and handling on a Friday. So it's a little bit crazy, but that's the sport that we love. It's not always great, but you get kind of, you never lack for a surprise. Put it like that.
Now, I'm sure your Substack, you didn't expect to be writing about this story this morning. What was your reaction when you heard the news that the Fury Usyk fight is postponed?
Well, I mean, I was surprised, I think, like everybody else. I mean, I had been hearing some rumors. I had talked to a couple of people and I'd been working on it. And so I wasn't totally surprised that it was postponed. I didn't know the exact reason until my friend Chris Mannix put that out. He had spoken to Egis Klimas, who is the manager for Oleksandr Usyk. And so like I knew that there was an issue with the fight, but wasn't sure exactly what it was. I knew it was related to Fury. And as I said, he got the news from the manager that it was a cut. I then confirmed it with a few sources that was in fact what was up. And then it was soon after that Queensberry put out their statement about the postponement, put out a statement from Tyson himself. I then later saw the video that was circulating of about a 15-second clip of him in the ring with the sparring partner. And you can't see exactly what happened, but it was very clear that there was something, a cut. He had taken an uppercut and perhaps the elbow might have caught him on the back end of that by accident. You saw Fury immediately, go for where it happened over his eye. What are you going to do? I mean, it's very unfortunate. It's the biggest fight, that we've all wanted to see for a long time. Finally, for the undisputed title in the heavyweight division, and you're 2 weeks away, and shit happens.
Certainly does. I mean, you've been involved in the sport for over 25 years. How often has this happened before a big fight like this that you can remember?
Well, I mean, I can think of a number of fights that were postponed because of injuries, that were big fights. Now, not necessarily, in the window within, 2 weeks, let's say, of a fight of this magnitude. Now, I didn't cover this fight. This is when I was a kid. But, I mean, in terms of a big heavyweight championship fight, I mean, one of the most probably the single most famous fight in the history of boxing, I think many would agree, was George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali for the heavyweight championship, the Rumble in the Jungle. I think it is the most famous fight ever. That fight was supposed to take place in September of 1974. And George Foreman, who was already in Zaire, suffered a cut. The fight was postponed for like 4 or 5 weeks. And they went and they did it again. And obviously Ali pulled the humongous upset and regained the title. But I'm only making the point that this is not unprecedented in the heavyweight division. This is not even the biggest heavyweight fight of all time that's been postponed due to a cut, because no offense to Tyson Fury or Oleksandr Usyk, but I dare say George Foreman against Muhammad Ali was a bigger deal. In terms of non-heavyweight fights, I mean, again, I'm not saying they were done in the week of the fight or 2 weeks before the fight, but I can think of, and this is just right off the top of my head, like Oscar De La Hoya was supposed to fight Fernando Vargas, a very big fight at the time, junior middleweight title unification, 2 big stars, big pay-per-view in Vegas. And there was an injury that occurred and the fight was postponed. Marco Antonio Barrera against Eric Morales, one of the great trilogies of all time. They had, I think it was their second fight that was postponed because I don't remember which guy it was, but one of them suffered a rib injury and the fight was put off. In other words, these things happen all the time. And this is not an injury situation, but it's the day before the fight. I was there in Vegas when they did the weigh-in for what was supposed to be the third fight between Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo. They had the first fight is the all-time great fight of all time, fight of the year from 2005, fight of the decade, maybe the greatest fight of all time. They did a rematch. Third fight, Corrales missed weight for the second time in a row. Castillo missed weight for the second time in a row, and Corrales opted not to go through with the fight. So it got canceled the day before the fight. They kept the card on with the rest of the show, but I'm only making the point again that fights being canceled, postponed in the late going of a promotion of a training camp, week of the fight, even in this case I just mentioned the day before the fight, It's happened. There's a famous example, by the way, of a light heavyweight title fight that was canceled on the day of the fight because of an issue. That was an old Michael Spinks fight from back in the day. So, it's not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time. It's still unfortunate, however. Hopefully, the cut's not as bad as it appeared on the picture. I'm sure you saw the photo. It looked like a pretty brutal cut. Not like he needed 1 or 2 stitches, and it was going to be like 3 weeks or something like that. This looks like a pretty severe kind of injury. So it's the type of thing where it could be a couple of months just to heal the cut, and then once that happens and you're cleared by your doctor, you still may have to go and get back in camp. I mean, he may not need a full 8 weeks, but they're going to want to get back in the groove and do some sparring, and have another, at least I would think another like 4 weeks at least. So to me, it feels like this fight doesn't happen if it's rescheduled, late spring, early summer at the earliest.
Tyson Fury's divided opinion throughout his career. So no surprise that some people online were dubious about the injury. But, if, just yesterday it was announced that all 3 major broadcasters were going to air the fight. There was the promo that Turki Al-Sheikh put out. Is it just a bit silly? I mean, Eddie Hearn said to me it's ridiculous for people to think that he's just made up an injury. Would you go along with that?
I mean, there's a lot of things that my good pal Eddie Hearn and I would disagree about. This is not one of those things. Eddie and I would be in perfect concert on this. I don't think there's anything other than here's a heavyweight champion who was training his ass off for the fight. I saw some pictures of Fury. He looked in tremendous condition. He got caught with a shot, with an uppercut, or perhaps the elbow on the back end, and it cut him. And that's unfortunate. It happens. I mean, if they canceled the biggest fight in the history of the times with Ali and Foreman because of a cut, what's so special about Usyk and Fury to be canceled or postponed because of a cut? It happens. So I don't believe I'm not a conspiracy-oriented individual. I think that's a lot of bullshit. I think the reality is if Tyson Fury didn't want to do this fight, we would have known about it far sooner than 2 weeks beforehand. And last thing I always knew about Tyson Fury, besides being the heavyweight champ, one of the things he loves more than anything is all that money. And he was about to cash in and make a huge amount of money. And I don't think he wants to let that go. And therefore, I just think that it's complete nonsense. I mean, yes, has he now withdrawn from this fight twice? Remember, it was supposed to take place December the 23rd, but he got so touched up and had such a rough performance against Ngannou that he wasn't going to be ready to go back in the ring in that short period of time. Now, from my point of view, no matter what had happened in that fight with Ngannou and Fury, and no one kind of knowing the way Fury goes about his business, I never believed for 2 seconds that he was going to fight on October 28th against Francis Ngannou and then be back in the ring December 23rd to fight the undisputed fight against Usyk. So it didn't shock me it got postponed at all. So it was supposed to be in December. Then it was supposed to be obviously coming up in February. And now it's not going to happen in February either. I just hope they can figure out a way to make sure it does happen because it's still a very important fight, a very significant fight, the biggest fight in the heavyweight division in terms of the clarity and the undisputed nature of this matchup, that it's important for the sport to happen.
Just moving away from all this Fury Usyk talk for a minute, Joshua-Ngannou, as far as we know, is going ahead March 8th in Saudi Arabia. What's your thoughts on the fight, Dan? Easy work for Joshua, or do you think Ngannou poses a big challenge?
I mean, if you had asked me that question prior to having seen what Ngannou did with Tyson Fury, I'd tell you probably easy work. But we saw a Ngannou that was in great condition, that was motivated, that was a lot better than I think anybody thought he would have been. I think part of that obviously is because Fury probably didn't take it as seriously as he should have. And part of that was the reason why Ngannou had some success. But I don't attribute all of it to Fury's, not being prepared. I think that we just underestimated what Ngannou was capable of. He obviously is a tremendous athlete. He obviously is experienced in terms of combat sports as a MMA fighter. And he did well in boxing. And he put Tyson Fury on his rear end. And he made believers out of a lot of people. A lot of folks left that arena or from watching their TV screen or computer screen or whatever, thinking that Ngannou should have been the winner. So I don't think he's sneaking up on Anthony Joshua, but I don't think it's easy work. Joshua should be the favorite. Obviously, the guy's a 2-time heavyweight champ, an Olympic gold medalist, and is coming off some good performances and been active and all that. But again, when you can punch the way that Ngannou can punch, and you now have 10 rounds of that experience against a Fury who is obviously a tremendous fighter in his own right, how could you write him off? I don't think you can. But, again, listen, obviously Joshua should be the winner, but it's boxing and punches are flying. You just don't know. And that's what makes it interesting. That's why you want to see it. So I'm much more looking forward to seeing Joshua against Ngannou in hindsight of knowing what occurred between him and Fury than I was going into seeing Fury and Ngannou, because my perspective has changed. I saw Ngannou perform at a very high level against a top heavyweight, even if he wasn't in 100% shape and prepared for that matchup. But we've seen what he can do. So I mean, why wouldn't you be interested in that fight?
Hmm. And Zhilei Zhang against Joseph Parker's got a lot of people talking, a lot of people happy to see this fight. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Really good matchup. Zhang has earned it. Parker's earned it. Zhang was not really given a lot of. I think people gave him a chance, but they figured that that Joe Joyce was the favorite when they had their first fight, and Zhang proved himself. He scored 2 knockouts against Joe, and he did it impressively the first time, and that was really because of the injury and the swelling over the eye. He came back in the second fight and beat up on Joe Joyce much easier and stopped him in the rematch. And so he's in a position where he belongs to get a big fight. And, listen, Joseph Parker has always been one of the top heavyweights for the last several years, maybe not at the very, very top, but even when he's fought and lost, he's put up a great fight and been competitive. And so the fact that he went and he defeated Wilder, I can't say I was shocked that he won. What I was shocked was by the ease in which he won. I think if you thought that Parker had a real chance to win that fight, it'd be competitive. He'd have to get knocked down and get up, and because of the punching power that Wilder had. I don't think anybody really thought that he was going to go in there and just basically run Wilder out of the ring. So this is a good matchup. I mean, if you're making your top 10 heavyweights, right? You got the big guys at the top in Usyk and Fury and I guess Joshua and Zhang, but the guys that are right below that are Parker and Zhang, in whichever order you want to put them. They're among the top 5 heavyweights, I would think, in the sport right now, and they're fighting each other. And it's just another good matchup in an era of heavyweights that's really good, that people don't give it the credit that they will in the future. I've said this before, and I've been ridiculed by some. I don't give a fuck about that, because this truly is one of the better heavyweight eras that we have seen. No question about it. And obviously it starts with the guys like Wilder, Fury, Usyk, but Joshua, but you have, the other guys in there making the name for themselves also. And Zhang and Parker are 2 of those guys that add depth to this division. Maybe Ngannou, he's in that picture, at least, on a side, let's say, for different reasons, with an asterisk. But you're putting the 2 of the top 5 heavyweights in the ring for high stakes. And I'm interested.
Just finally, Dan, as I mentioned to you, I'm here for Conor Benn against Peter Dobson this Saturday. Do you know much about Dobson? He's a relative unknown to people in the UK. What do you think of the fight?
I mean, I think it's a placeholder fight for Conor. He obviously got the victory when he fought in Florida. And I know that, if he's able to get his license back in the UK, I guess they have the hearing coming up later in February. But they're not going to, he'd been out of the ring for 17 months, still dealing with the drug case. I don't make the rules, but he is licensed here in the United States, so they're gonna fight. But they don't want to risk the huge fight. I still think they can. Maybe they think they might be able to do a Eubank fight, maybe do a Liam Smith. I've heard, Conor's mentioned on various places. Maybe Jaron Ennis, maybe a fight against Devin Haney, something like that. In other words, they're looking for something a lot bigger than Peter Dobson. So they line him up with a guy that's reputable in terms of his record. But if you take a look at the Dobson record, who he's actually fought, he's 33 years old. He's been a pro for 10 years, hasn't fought anybody. Matter of fact, this is going to be his first 12-round fight against Conor Benn. And on top of that, he's only had 1 previous 10-round fight. So by all accounts, whatever your perspective is about Conor, whether he was using PEDs, not using PEDs, put all that to the side. Dobson is basically, and it seems to me, they found a guy with a good record who's willing to do the fight for the price tag, and they're going to put him in the ring, and Conor Benn is supposed to win. Now, supposed to win, upsets happen. But by all accounts, this is not a fight that should be too strenuous for Conor Benn. If it is, that's probably more of an indictment of Conor Benn than anything about Peter Dobson. But look, Dobson's got the chance. We'll see what he can do. Yeah, he's got the opportunity. In boxing, it's all you can ask for is the opportunity. It's up to the boxer to make the most of it. But that all said, my man, this got to be, I would think, a pretty perfunctory Conor Benn victory.
We will see what happens. Dan, appreciate your time. As usual, I'll tell people, go check out the Substack. Go check out the big
Fight Freaks Unite.
Fight Freaks Unite. It will be in the description for people who want to read it. And we will catch up soon, I hope.
Jonathan, thank you so much. Enjoy yourself in Vegas.
I will. Appreciate it.